Hi everyone, this is Mr. Cross, and today we are going to talk about supply and demand. Now, we're going to start off talking about demand, and what I want you to do is plot the following: prices and quantities demanded. Now, if you don't have paper in front of you, just go ahead and follow along with the screen because we'll plot it out on the screen. But what you're seeing on the left is a list of prices for some imaginary product. Just imagine any random product. That if that product cost $9, then people would demand 2 of that product. If the product was $8, people would demand 3. So quantity demanded is the number of items of a product the public would demand given the price. Right? And what we see here, what this information all combined together, this list of prices and this list of quantities demanded is what we call a demand schedule. So I think it makes sense to us that as the price goes down, the quantity demanded goes up, and vice versa. Because if something's cheaper, you're more willing to buy it. Here's our demand schedule at the top of the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to plot it on an L-shaped graph. We're going to label one axis of the graph with a P for price and one with a Q for quantity. And these points are going to be plotted out here in this little PowerPoint animation. Now all of these points that are plotted out here on this graph are just taken from this demand schedule at the top of the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to connect these dots, and this is going to be our demand curve, what we call the demand curve. And we label, when you guys draw a graph, which you will do, you're going to want to understand all these labels. You're going to want to make sure that you always label this axis with a P, you label this axis with a Q, and you label the demand curve with a large letter D. This information is the entire curve. Demand is the entire curve. When we talk about demand, we mean all prices and all quantities demanded. Okay, this point on the curve is the quantity demanded. That is just one point on the curve. That is one quantity demanded, and that is one price, and that's one spot on the curve. So the importance of noting this difference is that if you're saying the price or the demand for a pair of shoes fell or rose because the price changed, that's actually an incorrect statement. And we're going to talk about that more in a second. But it's an incorrect statement because if the price changes, what's changing is the quantity demanded, not the overall demand. An overall demand would be a shift in this curve to another point on this graph, and we'll talk about that more in just a moment. Okay, here we have our graph, and here's a couple of definitions. So again, trying to hammer home this idea that quantity demanded is different than demand. So quantity demanded, it is the amount that will be purchased at a specific price. Demand, it is a schedule of quantities of goods and services that will be purchased at various prices at a specified time, all other things held constant. Alright, here's our curve. Price changes quantity demanded. Remember that the variable that changes the quantity demanded is the price, and vice versa. And so each of these points on a graph represents a price and a quantity demanded, and we're not changing demand when the price of a product changes. Price does not change demand, and notice that I put 8 exclamation points to try to make it very clear that price does not change demand. It's a very important idea. Only one variable does change quantity demand, and you'll maybe, if you guys have taken chemistry, you'll know that this triangle means change. But only one variable changes quantity demanded. That is, hopefully you know, the answer is price. Price does not change demand. Guess how many determinants of demand there are? There are going to be 6. There are going to be 6 determinants of demand, meaning things that do shift that curve. So price is not a determinant of demand because price doesn't change demand. It changes quantity demanded. So we're going to talk about the things that do change demand. Okay, there are 6 determinants of demand. The first one is number of consumers. So there is a town in Central California. A good friend of mine's grandmother lives in the town of Farmersville. It's a real town. You can look it up, but it's very small. And when you drive down the highway and you see the Motel 6 at the off-ramp for Farmersville, the rate is pretty low. The rate for a room at the Motel 6 off the freeway in Farmersville is only about $37 a night. However, when you go to Las Vegas and you see the Motel 6 in Las Vegas, the rate is twice as much, literally almost exactly twice as much. So why is the rate twice as much in Vegas as it is in Farmersville? And the answer is because the number of people who want to stay in a room in Vegas is higher than the number of people who want to stay in Farmersville, and that pushes demand for rooms higher in Vegas. And because there's a greater demand for a room in Vegas, they charge more. Okay, the second determinant is income. Now, income is divided into normal goods and inferior goods. So a normal good, the definition of a normal good is any good that when your income goes up, your demand for a normal good goes up. So if your income is going up, if you hear from your boss that you're getting a raise, or if you're getting a new job that pays more, your income's going up, your demand for certain things are going to go up, like new clothes, steaks, fancy food, new car. The demand for those kinds of things are going up. If income across the nation is going up, demand for normal goods is going to go up. The definition of inferior goods are goods that your demand for them go up when your income goes down. So what's an example of an inferior good? Well, when you go to the grocery store and you buy, for example, store brand vegetables. Store brand vegetables are an example of inferior goods because when your income is going down, your likelihood of buying the store brand as opposed to the name brand goes up because it's usually cheaper. If your income is going down, you're more likely to buy used furniture, whereas if your income is going up, an example of a normal good would be a brand new piece of furniture, from the official Lazy Boy store, as opposed to some used furniture at a used furniture store. Now, there's nothing wrong with used furniture. I've used used furniture before, and it's fine. But the whole concept is when your income is going up, you're going to buy the brand new stuff. When your income's going down, you're going to search for deals, and one of the ways you search for deals is sometimes buying products that aren't as high of quality, aren't as desirable. The products that are considered less desirable, we call them inferior goods in economics. If they're brand new and highly desirable, we call them normal goods. When you're shopping at the swap meet, you're usually looking for inferior goods. There's going to be more people shopping at the swap meet for deals when people's income is going down than there are when the income is going up. When your income's going up, you're more likely to go to a regular store and buy a new product. A used car is a good example of an inferior good. There's nothing wrong with a used car. Used cars can be a great option for most people to buy a vehicle. However, it's not. If your income is going up, you're more likely to buy a new car. Now, when I'm saying this, I want you to remember that what I'm saying about income relates to more likely. Just because your income goes up doesn't mean you're not going to go out and buy a used car. You might go buy a used car, and then you're going to say, well, Cross, you're crazy. I got a raise, but I still bought a used car. Well, sure, I'm not saying every instance is going to be like this. What I'm saying is the average person across the nation in the United States, with 350 million people in our country, if incomes across the country tend to be going up, then things like new car sales will tend to go up, and vice versa. Okay, number 3, preferences. Preferences is, I think, easy to understand. Preferences just refers to the number of people who want something. So back in, I think, the early 2000s, there were 2 different high-quality DVDs. So in the 90s, we had DVDs, which is a big step up from VHS. And then we had HD DVDs and Blu-rays. And HD DVD actually is made by Toshiba, which is an electronics company, Japanese electronics company, and they actually made a HD DVD player that connected to an Xbox 360, way back when. And the quality of the DVD was really good. In fact, the competitor to HD DVD was Blu-ray and vice versa. And some people bought HD DVDs, but ultimately now, in the current day, we only have Blu-rays and we don't have HD DVDs anymore. Why don't we have HD DVDs? And why do we have Blu-ray? And the answer is, it's really hard to say the answer. And so as economists, what we do is we say, well, it was preferences. People, for whatever reason, they chose Blu-ray over HD DVDs. Now maybe Blu-ray is made by Sony, so maybe people knew were more familiar with Sony as a brand, and they trusted Sony's brand better than Toshiba, although they're both big electronics manufacturers. Sony's much bigger. Maybe they like the name Blu-ray more than they like HD DVD because it's not as hard to say. I don't. The thing is, what you need to understand is we don't know the answer. We don't really care the answer. All we know is that people preferred Blu-rays over HD DVDs. They bought Blu-rays and HD DVDs. Toshiba, they quit making them, and now we just have Blu-rays. And so it wasn't any problem with the quality. I mean, you might say, well, maybe the quality was different. Yeah, but the quality wasn't different. We know the quality wasn't different. That wasn't the issue. It was just a matter of, for whatever reason, people preferred Blu-rays. And we don't really care why they preferred them. They just did. And so in economics, when we're talking about things that change demand, we're talking about preferences. We're just saying people liked one thing more than another. It's like liking a certain clothing style over another. Why do some people like certain clothing styles over others? Just preferences. Okay, number 4 is price of related products, substitutes. So we spent a good deal of time explaining that price doesn't change demand and price does not change demand. So if I go into a grocery store and I see that, and I like to drink Coca-Cola once in a while, and I go to buy a Coca-Cola and the price has doubled, I would not say that that price change has changed my demand. It might change the fact that I want to buy a soda. I might say I'm not going to pay $5 for a can of soda when I used to pay $1. But that doesn't change demand. But what that price change does do is when I don't buy a Coke, if I'm in the mood for a cola and I don't buy a Coke and I've got my money in my hand, I'm going to search for alternatives. And so what would give me an example of an alternative to Coca-Cola? Think about it. And the one that immediately comes to mind is Pepsi, but there's other alternatives for cola. I know there's many alternatives. There's RC Cola, there's Shasta Cola, and on down the list. But here's the point. Price doesn't change the demand for Coca-Cola. If the price of Coke goes up, that doesn't change the demand for Coca-Cola. But it does change the demand for substitute products such as Pepsi. Because if I walk into a liquor store with money in my hand and I want to purchase a cola and I go for the Coca-Cola and Coca-Cola is really expensive, or it's more expensive than I expect to pay, then I might look for an alternative. I'm more likely to look for an alternative. And one of the alternatives, the big alternative, is going to be Pepsi. But like I said, there's others. But the point is that price doesn't change demand, but price does change demand of substitute products. When people are asked to pay a higher price for a product that they normally use, they will search for substitutes. Okay, number 5 is price of related products complements. So this is similar to substitutes, except for that we're talking about not products that are substitutes for one another, but products that are complements, meaning they are used together. So, for example, tell me a complementary product for peanut butter.
It's peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly time. Peanut butter jelly time. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter jelly. Peanut butter.
Okay, so there we go. So peanut butter and jelly are good examples of complementary products. So just imagine if you go to a store and you see that the price of peanut butter has gone up a little bit, you might skip peanut butter that week. You might try to stretch the jar that you already have at home another week for your daily lunches. And if you skip peanut butter that week, you're also likely to skip jelly again because you don't want to make you don't need to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if you don't have enough peanut butter. So because they are complementary products, when the price of peanut butter goes up, the demand for jelly goes down. Now, again, I know some of you guys are probably thinking about this and you're getting confused. You're like, no, I would still buy jelly because I'd use it for other stuff. True, absolutely. We're not saying that no one's going to buy jelly if the price of peanut butter goes up. What we're saying is, if you're looking at 350 million people across the United States, if the price of peanut butter goes up a little bit and a few of those people skip peanut butter that week, then a few of those people are also going to skip jelly that week. A few out of 350 million is still many thousands of people, so it's going to affect the demand for jelly. That's really what we're saying here. We're not saying one individual can decide to do whatever they want, but we're talking about across millions of people, how might things change, and that's what demand represents. Number 6, the last one, is expectations. Now this one kind of has two parts to it. We're talking about expectations. We're talking about expectations of prices. So the example I have for you is that the iPhone, when it was a brand new product, way back in like 2006, 2007, the iPhone came out, and you can see this is a picture of a really old iPhone, and they put it on sale, and it was $900. Now, $900 is a lot of money today. It was a lot of money in 2007, and even though the iPhone at the time was a revolutionary product, and still is pretty revolutionary, $900 was a price that enough people weren't willing to pay. They weren't selling enough iPhones. And what people know about electronics is that if you go buy the electronics the first day they come out, that you're going to be paying probably a higher price. If you wait a little while, usually when it comes to electronics, the price goes down. So what Apple eventually did was they did not sell as many iPhones as they intended to sell when they originally created this product. So they had to drop the price. They actually had to drop the price when the iPhones first came out, way back when. And then, of course, it became a phenomenon, and as many people own iPhones as they do today. But because of the expectation that people had about that prices were going to fall, a lot of people refrained from purchasing iPhones. And so another example that I could give you in relation to expectations of prices is, imagine you're getting in your car and you hear on the radio that gas prices are expected to fall on Monday, and it's a Friday or a Thursday. If gas prices are expected to fall on Thursday or Friday, do you rush out to the gas station and fill up your car with gas right away? Or are you more likely to try to wait and stretch the gas that you have in your tank until Monday, so when you fill up, you'll get a cheaper price? Or if you do have to fill up over the weekend, maybe you only put a quarter of a tank in, expecting to drive around a little bit on the weekend and then go fill up on Monday when the prices fall. So what we're saying about expectations is, the price doesn't change the demand for gasoline, for example, but the expectation of what you think is going to happen with the price of gasoline does change your demand. You were planning on filling up on Friday. You almost always fill up on Friday, so you have gas for the weekend. But this time you're not going to fill up a full tank. You're only going to get a quarter of a tank because you want to get the advantage of the lower price on Monday when you heard this news report. Expectations of income is similar to expectations of prices in the sense that it's not based on the income itself. It's not based on a change in income. It's based on if you expect to have a change in income. So let's say you started your job and your employer told you, listen, you're going to work here for a year, and after 1 year of employment, we're going to give you a raise if you're doing a good job. And in the 11th month that you're working there, the boss comes by and goes, hey, I just want to tell you how much we value you as an employee, and you're almost a shoo-in to get that raise that I told you at the beginning when you started. Now, your income actually hasn't gone up yet. It doesn't go up for another month until they officially award you the raise. However, you expect that your income is going to go up. We can't really know exactly what's going to happen in the future until it happens. All we can do is we have general expectations. So if you expect that your income is going to be going up in the future, then that's going to increase your demand for a variety of items. So number 6 is kind of tricky, and a lot of students get it wrong. But it's really important that you understand we're talking about what you think might happen in the future, not what is actually happening in the present. In the future, what do you expect the price of a product to be next week, next month, next year? What do you expect your income to be next week, next month, next year, in the future when we don't know? We can only base it on the information that we have at hand. So expectation is a little bit tricky, and that's the last determinant of demand. These are the 6 determinants of demand that you need to know to be able to understand demand properly.